No, exactly.
Talking about books, oh my god!
Ah.
So we having now a new segment on a collection of blueprints. I asked to my guests in advance what are their like most favorite books, and if I haven't written them, I would read them, and then we can talk about them. So it's a little bit like an Oprah book club going on here. But I was very lucky that Chris mentioned as his one of the number one books. It was Sapiens.
Yes.
And I just read it and listened it, but I realized that Chris knows about this book more than I do. Even he read it like a year ago. So why Sapiens?
I mean, I have 3 books. First one was Sapiens by Yuval Harari. Second one was The Encounter by Petru Popescu. And the third one was Where Good Ideas Come From by John Levinson or so. And Sapiens specifically because it is one of these books that kind of like once you read it and you got the main points, it gives you a new perspective on life in general. And so it's kind of like, it's a little bit like nerdy talk, like a new software package basically that you download and then suddenly you're like,
and more advanced, and you kind of can look at things differently. Yeah, true.
Exactly, like that kind of like aha moment, eureka moment, which is quite beautiful. And you have that with this book, like in a few parts.
We discussed some of the parts. Which parts you thought were like the most thought-provoking and interesting?
I mean, it starts with one very simple that I really appreciated. Is kind of like looking at us as the Homo sapiens, not necessarily as kind of like the top of evolution or kind of like the
top of the chain
or whatever. It's more like kind of like see ourselves as kind of like more like an enlightened monkey, but realizing kind of like we're still that, and where so many of our behavior patterns, routines, and way of thinking, operating, and acting or reacting kind of like come from. And that was a beautiful kind of like switch. And then one to see how we operate with our mind in a different perspective, and specifically to our species, that we're able to congregate around an idea. An idea can survive us, can go beyond the existence of that specific individual, and also like why we create nation states, have a common identity, and the importance of it in comparison to why not you couldn't incentivize 10,000 monkeys with paying each one a few bananas in order to watch a game of soccer or so. So that was a very fundamental kind of like shift in perspective. And also another one that we haven't changed as much over the centuries, basically,
as we think
exactly. So basically we have still the same level of biochemical happiness as kind of like the first version of us, like let's say like 200,000 years ago, and basically we're to a certain degree experiencing things still in the same way. Our brain hasn't changed. It's just like basically the information and the things that we process around us kind of like have changed. So more like the extra perspective than the interest perspective.
And I read the book as well, but I need to next time put some notes down. But some of the things I remember was about how certain values of community being kind of pushed on everyone else. Let's say like certain rules, and then 30, 40 years later, you look at it like, what the hell was going on with these people? Like, why would they do, talking about Christianity, about burning witches and all that. And then 30, 40 years later, it's like, how did we do this? And why? With a certain basic kind of, as you mentioned, patterns of human behavior, they still the same. And it's
yes, correctly. I mean, there's still like lots of legacy rules and concepts and ideas in certain laws or regulations, no matter again which culture, depending you are on the planet, that are kind of like outdated or anachronistic.
One of the things I also remember was about that the reason why Homo sapiens, which we're That's our ancestors, right? That's
Yes,
where we come from.
I mean, no, that's us.
That's us.
There's the parallel line that died out before the Homo erectus, and then before like the
Erectus is standing up, right? That's erectus, man.
The standing monkey, basically.
Standing monkey,
like
and and sapiens were not standing monkeys.
Oh, no, already it's like, but that's kind of like, so sapiens comes from sapientia, kind of the Latin word for wise, so the wise monkey.
Wise monkey.
Yeah.
I knew those things. I just pretending.
Monkey,
I'm pretending. No, I'm more erectus, 100%. and not always, anyways.
Yeah, so we get from kind of like erected standing monkey to like wise monkey.
Here you go, in between. And they were mentioning that Homo sapiens were the ones who, instead of like simplifying their reactions on things what happening around them, they actually like telling stories. Yes. So they were telling stories. Let's say if they one of the members of the tribe would see
I slaughtered this giant mammoth around the corner. Look.
I was going with saying that there's a crocodile at the river somewhere. Yeah. And then, so the other species, they would just use a very simple way to describe. They would say, crocodile, river, kind of watch out. And our ancestors, they were telling a story. There's this massive crocodile around. You shouldn't be walking out there, blah, blah, blah. It's like, did you remember that part? Or I'm just pulling it from somewhere.
I think no. It definitely was part of the book in terms of like storytelling and the importance of it for us as a narrative and like for shaping identity. Transporting information. It was kind of.
I was the right side. And so anyone who's listening to this, Sapiens is a book to read, 100%. And I mean, Sapiens been suggested by so many other podcasts, and Joe Rogan including, Yeah. But in the future, I'm going to do a better job of actually having a couple points written down.
I would also recommend all 3 books, but one is like too long of a story. But the other one, Where Great Ideas Come From, shitty title, Where Good Ideas Come From, shitty title, but it basically gets into the head of some of the most brilliant people of our times and how they came across their invention or story, from Tim Berners-Lee, who invented the World Wide Web, or to Sir Isaac Newton, basically how he came across the fundamental laws of physics and gravity, and what made them able to see those informations or created those things. Brilliantly written, very interesting. I mean, basic example, Alfred Wallace and Charles Darwin were discovering the theory of evolution at the same time, actually around here in our hood, around Komodo here in Indonesia. Basically where, but why was one earlier than the other? I actually just got more famous. Highly good, well-written book.
And are you a reader or you're a listener? Do you prefer audiobooks over reading?
Definitely reading. You process information differently. Yeah. I mean, audiobooks can be more efficient, but I love listening to podcasts such as yours.
Oh, baby.
And many others. And
that's the reason why Sapiens didn't stay in my head so much, because I was doing the audiobook. But yeah, there's so many things we're trying to do at the same time, and then you try like multitask, but as known, men are not very good at this, especially me. Okay, that's about books, about widening your horizon. What would you say, what is a formula of reading books? How often you would say 1 book a month, 2 books a month, or there's really not?
Depends on
such a thing.
How much time you have, how fast you can process information. If you manage 1 book a month, that's already awesome, I would say. If you have the dedication, that's a pretty good start. And then everything below is a little bit more, definitely more ambitious, but you got to have then dedicated time. There's the crazy story about Bill Gates, who does like these reading sabbaticals for like 1 or 2 weeks, where he then basically reads like 12 books.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm probably not going to be there anytime soon.